What's poppin', people? It's your boy Zero, aka Black, Natsuki, Subaru, and today we are here with ReZero Arc 9, Chapter 54 and 55 reading. So I'm not gonna deliberate too long because I don't know exactly how long these chapters are, and I do want to get through it because everyone and their fucking mothers keeps telling me that 56 and whatever happens after that shit is fucking like crazy. So I'm gonna try and get this shit done as quickly as I can while still giving you guys like the same quality reaction and reading and like my thoughts and opinions. Goddamn, the last chapters had so much information and it just only made me have more questions. So I'm a water right here. We already know how this goes. I'm bricked up. You're bricked up. Let us be bricked up together and read peak fiction. So I already read this first page, so I'm gonna go down here. All right, and as always, if you guys think that more people would be interested in seeing someone who is a novel reader who enjoys making more content about the shit, do this live and have reactions to it and the anime reactions, share it with your homies, join the Discord. It's all the link in the description below. Anyway, excuse me. That deliberately wicked phrasing seemed to be an equal blend of the witch's humor and the witch's sincerity. As for which one it actually was, he could not tell. After all, always boasting of her inability to comprehend the human heart, the witch's true feelings were unclear to even Aldebaran, who had been in her company for so long, leaving him with nothing to latch onto. But supposing the witch's words were correct, it was rather strange. After all, even though the alignment of the stars was at its absolute worst for Aldebaran in his current circumstances, he did not consider his days with the witch to be a misfortune. Though certainly, with her putting him through the experience of being killed a million times under the guise of being a trial, calling him by a name he disliked even after objecting to it in disagreement, there was no doubt that these circumstances were far removed from any ordinary notion of happiness. To think you could find value in living alongside a complete failure of a witch. You are truly a pitiful child. This was a complex muttering containing both self-deprecation alongside a firm depreciation of the other party. Deprecation, my bad. However, Aldebaran would not fail to hear the gentle timbre that could not be fully concealed therein. Even if they were meager, even if they were easily lost in the mix, even if they were difficult to understand, earnest emotions did well within the witch, searching for evidence as a basis to believe that was a pastime of Aldebaran's. In truth, he did not really know for sure. It might have just been a misunderstanding or a misconception. What mattered was how Aldebaran felt. The witch's true intentions were her own to keep. What was the truth for Aldebaran? What was, or let me restate that. What was the truth for Aldebaran was for Aldebaran alone. The way you separate those things is remarkably reminiscent. As expected, the thing known as influence is not to be trifled with. Narrowing her black eyes, fiddling with her white bangs, thus spoke the witch, while simultaneously looking past Aldebaran to somebody else, and at herself reflected within Aldebaran's irises. The witch muttered those words reminiscently. Hold up. As expected, the thing known as influence is not to be trifled with. Now, is she possibly referring to Bayako or Roswell? I wouldn't even say Puck because Puck doesn't act anything like Echidna. But, and I 100% doubt that this could be anywhere remotely close to Subaru. So I feel like this has got to be Roswell, unless it's somebody that we haven't really gotten to see much of yet. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Influence. It was only natural for such a thing to exist in birth and in upbringing, in Aldebaran and in the witch. failure, inadequacy, imperfection. Was that past of hers really so shameful for the witch? Ooh, a named chapter that's gonna go stupid as echidnas, bro. Ooh, are we gonna potentially get named chapters for the witches? I think we should. If we don't, I'm gonna be upset. Was it a curse for him to think that think that thanks to it having turned out this way, that way, his days with the witch were able to continue? If only one thing could be said, it was Aldebaran. A reunion spanning a decade for Aldebaran and stretching across 4 centuries for the other party, when the figure of the witch, nay, of the witch of greed present amidst familiar scenery, was one that contracted the complete failure she had spoken about back on that day. Aldebaran was overcome with unbearable feelings of loss and despair. A reunion spanning a decade for Aldebaran and stretching across 4 centuries for the other party. Okay, when the figure of the witch, nay, the witch of greed, present amidst familiar scenery, was one that contradicted the complete failure she had spoken about back on that day, Aldebaran was overcome with unbearable feelings of loss and despair. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Fiddling with the metal fixtures of his helmet, Aldebaran surveyed the situation. Before his eyes, having used the almost divine colossal anchor of ice as a landmark, the lineup of personnel boldly squared off against Aldebaran. Why the fuck did they blue ball me like that? God damn it. The group opposing him was one centered around around Felt, so Aldebaran made no effort to question the meaning of them having assembled here. Even without needing to ask, he understood. Roy and Heinkel had been defeated. Ooh. He could not imagine that even Aldebaran had been defeated, but since the dragon had not hastened here, it seemed that it was being contained through some means. On top of defeating the Saint Archbishop of Gluttony, even if he may have been restricted with his authority and with the no-killing rule, the fact that they had even devised a countermeasure for the divine dragon was quite honestly beyond Aldebaran's imagination. Just what sort of stratagem had they prepared? He would likely not get an answer even if he asked, but 246. No matter how you slice it, a witch factor's just way too far for your resolve, little Miss Petra. At Aldebaran's straightforward remark, an air of tension ran through Feld's group. The one whose cheeks had stiffened the most was naturally Petra, given her name had been called out. From their perspective, Petra's authority was their trump card, something that was supposed to have been top secret. In fact, that policy had been firmly shared by all of their personnel. Yet, even the most iron of hearts could not remain unfazed before an unforeseeable stab. In response to Aldebaran's questions, everyone had kept up appearances, but through even the slightest shifts in gaze or attention, he would just keep testing over and over again, relentlessly probing in those directions. As a result, by pursuing the minute differences in their reactions, Aldebaran had arrived at the answer he desired, standing steadfast before him. Oh, that's how long it took him to get answers. Though he had been considerably shocked when it turned out to be Petra, who had taken in a witch factor. In the first place, I predicted that whether Little Miss Petra or Little Miss Maylie read that, they'd be completely incapable of returning to the front lines. Having sealed Natsuki Subaru and Beatrice away at the Pleiades watchtower, and after getting Garfield and Ezo out of the way, Aldebaran had let Petra and Maylie go without any harm. Not only was that because there had been no need to eliminate them, it was a stratagem in anticipation of what was to follow. In order to keep Reinhardt contained, it had been absolutely necessary to manifest the Witch of Envy. As the trigger for that, Aldebaran had selected Petra and Maylie as the candidates to read Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead. In reality, the intrusion of the Witch of Envy had granted Aldebaran a way out from his prolonged fight against Reinhardt, successfully eliminating the greatest obstacle to his plan. However, Even though reading anyone's book usually has a high chance of causing a mental breakdown, to think she was able to endure reading Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead. Did he say this out loud? A president did exist. Aldebaran happened to know that all too well, but even so, the reason he did not believe that anyone could accomplish that same feat was due to the absolute nature of death. The Book of the Dead belonging to Natsuki Subaru was a special grade cursed object. What? What? A fucking Jujutsu Kaisen reference? The Book of the Dead belonging to Natsuki Subaru was a special grade curse object that, depending on the situation, could be used as a trump card to defeat a higher level opponent. It was highly unlikely that there were... Oh my god, come on, Tabe. Oh my god. Okay. It was highly unlikely that there were many who could face it without having their hearts shattered. Or rather, I've got a bad habit of underestimating others. Regardless of what Aldebaran thought, it was a matter of fact that Petra was now standing here. Not only had she avoided having her heart shattered by the impact of reading the Book of the Dead, she had even gone so far as to perform the outrageous act of housing a witch factor within herself. In all likelihood, the experience of reading the Book of the Dead had led Petra to doing so. There is nobody who can defeat you, you whom I created. Flashing through the back of his mind, those words of the witch were intended to rouse Aldebaran's spirits, never to fill him with arrogance or cause him to stumble. If he got that mixed up, Aldebaran would lose the witch for good this time. This time for good. He would lose the witch who, reduced to the witch of greed, had lost the heart she had certainly once possessed. In the end, I guess I just can't have fate in the hands of others. Suppressing the sentimentality gripping his heart with deep breaths, Aldebaran faced forward. The enemy was strong, the obstacles many. He was bereft of allies with nothing to be proud of. Even so, he decided to proceed. That instant, Rah! Ablaze with rage, a stout fist of the golden tiger fiercely drove into Aldebaran's head. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never partake in celebrations. 61 people in total. After the conclusion against Roy Alfard of Gluttony, that was sorry, that shit took me out. That was what composed the Aldebusters. Oh yeah, okay. The combined strength of the Amelia camp and the Felt camp reorganized for that final battle against Al. Right after that fierce battle had ended, when the team was reorganized without taking a moment to breathe, Petra could not help but feel gratitude and admiration that so many still chose to remain. However, that was by no means condemning those who did not accompany the reorganized team. After all, neither Otto nor Meili can be pushed any further than that. Is that Subaru? Yep. Just as the imaginary Subaru said, for Otto and Meili, both individuals who had served as deciding factors in the clash against Gluttony, withdrawing from the front lines was necessary. It was only natural for Otto, whose memories had been eaten, and Meili, who had vehemently exhausted herself by overworking her divine protection to detain the Black Serpent. Right, I forgot about that. And it was not just them. Roy's trump card, unveiled in the 11th hour, using the authority of Gluttony to force them to relive pains of the past, had abraded some of their minds to the limit. Unlike wounds to the body, abrasions to the heart could not be easily restored even with Petra's compression. But then again, Meili had still continued to insist that her recovery time be compressed so that she could return to the front lines. But if you took out an advance payment on your life, Subaru wouldn't be too happy, you know. And so, persuaded by Petra, Meili had reluctantly, truly so very reluctantly, accepted her withdrawal from the battlefield. To be honest, Petra's maiden circuitry felt a subtle discomfort upon witnessing Meili's attitude in response to a persuasion that cited Subaru. But since it was the result of her own actions, she did not speak much of it. Moreover, she also had the duty of keeping an eye out for the Black Serpent that had been summoned by Gluttony. having vanished after combat had concluded. Petra felt apologetic that she was unable to grant her complete rest. We've got no choice but to have the capable ones to fill in where they can. With that said, there's still some crazy guys who will rush into the most high-risk situations even without their memories. It's incredible, isn't it? You can't help but think that Otto-san's that way, even without his memories. I guess it's just his innate disposition. He might be a high-risk junkie. Man. Hold on. I'm gonna take a little pause, sip of water. Alright. If the person in question were to hear that remark, whether he had memories or not, he would likely retort in a deeply emotional tone, "Could you please refrain from saying such disreputable things about me?" But there was no avoiding him being thought of in such a manner. Either way, Gluttony had firmly weakened their precious fighting strength, limiting the cards in their hand for the climax. She was glad for Garfield's return, but the fact that they could not devote the entirety of their forces to Rem and Amelia and Rem. Sorry, I saw Rem and I just wanted to say Rem first. Rem and Amelia. Regrettable for both Petra and Subaru. But even so, we're going to win, Subaru! Yeah, let's go and win! After all, we can't let everything we've built up to this point be for nothing. Famous last words. God, Buddha, Ad Lagna. For as long as I live, I hereby vow to never speak of my dreams to another. In the end, bro, she's basically turning herself into, like, if this is all being applied to Petra, right? Hypothetically, right? Because that's what we've been kind of led to believe. If she's the one who's making these sacrifices, and it's not just generally the people of Lagunica, or like it's not just like a fervent wish that someone else is taking on, then this is kind of like she's basically gonna turn herself into a fucking vegetable. Like, there's gonna be a certain point where she's not gonna be able to do anything. In the end, I guess I just can't leave fate in the hands of others. An offhanded remark, yet with a tone carrying resolve. That which was spoken by Al had served as the signal. Hurrah! With the raging Garfield at the vanguard, the outer busters simultaneously sprung into action. Keeping their eyes trained over those movements, Petra grasped her hands tightly over her chest. With the ice anchor Amelia had fired as a landmark, Petra had compressed the distance to the current location with the outer busters until now. English. With the outer busters in tow, barring Al's path once more. In all honesty, the fact that Amelia and Rem were not present, and the fact that the Konoichi assigned to accompany Al, who had unexpectedly been carried off with him, was nowhere to be found, was certainly a cause for concern, but Alside has no reason to lift their no-killing restriction. Using that as reassurance, perhaps that was placing a bit too much hope in their opponent's abilities and convictions. But when considering Al's fighting style with his authority of turning back time, until this point, that was the foundation. Since his authority was far too strong in a sense, Al had gotten away with being underestimated by his opponents up until now. And that premise, even now that his allies had been stripped away from him, ultimately would not change. Having rushed straight ahead without any preparatory movements, Garfield raised his voice in pain. Oh shit. The reason for this was his collision into a stone slab that had suddenly appeared along his trajectory. Having slammed his face into the stone slab that had preempted his initial strike, Garfield's body rolled over midair. And slipping past from underneath Garfield, Al moved to intercept the fighting strength which followed after the Golden Tiger. Coming after him was the trio of Ram, Flam, and Graces. I don't know how to fucking Graces. God damn it. Oddly enough, it's the pink-haired sisters. Well then, How's it gonna go? That's actually cute. 37. Okay. All right, fucking farmer or a farmer. Intercepting Garfield's rush with a stone slab, he slipped underneath as the former reeled backwards. The timing had been unexpectedly tight. If the stone slab was deployed too early, it would have been easily pulverized, and deploying it too late would have allowed Garfield to pass right by it. Perfecting the necessary timing to strike him in the face, he put it into practice. Hearing the cry of pain behind him, Aldebaran charged forward as three shadows swooped down upon him. He was flanked on his left and right by Flam and her sister, in sync with Ram, who came at him from upward diagonally. Bro, these fights are gonna look so good when they're animated. He could expect that sort of high precision coordination between twins, but Ram's ability to match them on first sight highlighted the abnormality of this team up. They all got pink hair, bro. Thereupon, little Miss Ram was crushed flat at those cliffs back there. She wasn't. Do not underestimate Ram and Ram's sisterly love. Neutralize, yeah, because I don't even know if does Al know about their synesthesia and like the fact that she can feel Ram. Neutralized by the sister's synesthesia. I literally, I didn't even look at the next fucking line. I just said that. Neutralized by the sister's synesthesia, the venom of his words failed to exhibit any effectiveness. Given her lack of discomposure, there was likely no falsehood in Ram's statement, inferring how that signified Ram's safety, as well as the unknown fate of Ye. It merely ended up serving as venom against himself. However, Earthbrand Arts! Using the mana coming to him via his pathway with the dragon, Aldebaran surrounded himself with swords of stone. In order to avoid the tips of the swords shooting up from the ground one after another, the twins deftly maneuvered their bodies to perform evasions, yielding a momentary delay that shifted their three-way coordination into a solo attack from Ram. With Ram singled out, he grabbed one of his stone dowels and thrust it toward her, head on. That's fine. I'll be borrowing it. Having scooped up his sword with wind magic, Ram slammed it right into the side of his jaw. 91. That's actually fucking hilarious. That's fine. I'll not be borrowing it. Oh, the fucking switch up, bitch. Declaring so, Ram allowed the stone sword she had pulled toward her with wind to pass by, brittly crumbling as it flew past her as she had failed to take the sword. Aldebaran delivered a blow onto her. Rem parried that blow with wind from her wand, skillfully controlling the wind currents to build air pressure and push past the clash of blades. Grabbing her leg with a stone prosthetic, he hurled her behind him while being bombarded by an onslaught of wind blades. Leaving Ram gritting her teeth behind him, Aldebaran pressed onward, and the delayed sisters of Flam and Graces swooped down on him once more. Readying himself for their approaching agility that cannot be underestimated on account of their youth, Aldebaran spread out his real right arm and artificial left arm, and roused a surging wave of sand to clear away everything in the 108-degree field of view in front of him. Okay, bro. Okay. Bro basically used like surf, but with sand. The girls were engulfed by the billowing sand, becoming encaged within the ground. Warrior to yin 6. Magician to win 5. King to flowers 8. My boy Ram. A surging force abruptly slammed into him from the front, plunging him into the sea of swords he had forged behind himself. 112. I like how he's kind of updating on how many loops it's taking him to be able to adjust to this. Because like for this one, 112, and the last one was 91. Like he's wait, what was the one before that? 37. Like it seems like he's having fewer loops to adjust to their antics, to their tactics, but he's still getting cooked by them. God damn it. Like this just goes to show you how powerful like the Amelia and Felt faction are, especially when they work together. Okay, wait. Oh shit. As soon herded, he forcibly closed his outstretched arms, fixing the muzzle of the wave of sand directly in front of him. The large bearded man who appeared there a beat later basked in the billowing wave, ending up in the same predicament as Flam and Graces. Thereby averting that misfortune, Aldebaran would attempt to overcome the enemies as he jumped out diagonally. Oh God! Still in his mid-air leap, he was struck by an unavoidable fastball of flame, scorching his insides. 146. Damn. 46, 12, 30, 34 loops. Damn. And look, talk shit as much as y'all want. My maths don't be mathing. I'm not like a math bitch, but sheesh. Like, bro, my boy pulls up. After trapping the twins and the large man in sand, he deliberately delayed his advance in response to the approaching fireball. Instead, what ended up basking in the inferno was a poorly made clay doll that Aldebaran had manifested in the spur of the moment. A poor knockoff of the magic Amelia had used to recreate Natsuki Subaru with ice. The fireball aimed to strike Aldebaran's head as he leaped forward, so amidst a combat requiring split-second decisions, it was easily baited by the poorly made earthen doll. What? The skinny man who had cast the spell, with his mean-looking eyes and tongue piercing. Oh! Oh shit! This is fucking Ratchins! Gasped at Aldebaran's countermeasure. So long as he was not. Sorry, I made my height. So long as he was not an expert magician, he would not be able to unleash old-tier magic in rapid succession. Flipping up his artificial middle finger, oh my god, to that expression of shock, Aldebaran moved to advance even further this time. Fire! From an oblique trajectory behind him, a light was fired as a shockwave that spread through Aldebaran's back. The luminosity of the corona that seemed to scorch the world painted even his consciousness white. 147. God damn it. I like how the teacher, or like the teachings of Echidna are still forcing him to keep track and like of, but like it's good. It's also like good like expository like dialogue or like inner monologuing for the viewer, which Tape like so beautifully set up, because it's showing that like, yeah, he's not just getting through this all like in like 1 or 2 fucking tries. Him going through trial and error, showing every like couple paragraphs like, okay, he's still keeping count. And this just goes through like her teachings are still so fully ingrained in him that, I mean, like, yeah, sure, it's been like a decade for him, but 400 years for them being together, that he's still stuck tried and true to like her teachings and just her influence. Literally, part of what they said, it was so incredibly strong on him that even under so much intense pressure, so many like crazy like evolving situations involving so many people, so many pieces, that like when you think about it, it's like, dude, yeah, he still lost to Satella, but he also couldn't beat Reinhardt. So it's like, the fuck, you if you were built to beat Satella, you would have been able to beat Reinhardt. And I'm not saying that because Satella is stronger than Reinhardt. That's not what I'm saying. But like, if you can permakill someone who is like, I think Satella is like a type 8 or type 10. She might have type 10 immortality. Like, soul erasure doesn't work on her, existence erasure doesn't work on her. Like, she literally has like an unkillable body. Like, she has like one of the strongest forms of immortality in common fiction. So it's just like, bro, you can't erase her soul, you can't erase her from existence. How the fuck is you thought Al was gonna beat this bitch? Like, what the fuck? But I digress. Let's see. Oh shit, I was reading too far. Fire! Turning to face the direction of the gallant war cry, Aldebaran recognized the identity of the perpetrator as felt. Barring her high canines in a valiant expression, in her grasp the magic staff that sourced the beam of light. Okay, yep, she's using that, yeah, the star staff. That was the meteor known as the star staff, something the witch had once used during her lifetime to make even the divine dragon cry. In other words, it was one of his mentor's loose ends. For teacher to be getting in my way here? What kind of dumb bug is this? At the untiring challenge that would stretch endlessly on ahead. At the wall he would have no choice but surmount at all costs. And at the fact that it was something originating from none other than the very witch who had guided Aldebaran's path. A tinge of melancholy burgeoned in his heart. As Aldebaran contemplated, the white light mercilessly engulfed him once again. Well then, 148. Fire! The approach of this white light was just how on earth could it be conquered? Damn it, you're getting fucking cooked, brother. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never bestow a gift upon another. The authority of Tristitia, just what exactly is that power capable of? God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never wave at anyone. Bro, she's literally going to be a fucking floating head. It can't be a simple war. There's no way it's just that. It's an authority. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never pray before going to sleep. It ought to be manifesting some sort of concept, right? Tristitia, huh? God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never comfort the wounds of another. Feeling blue, a downer, cloudy skies, depression, feeling crushed. Crushed? Oh god, he's on that Subaru level like Inception right now. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never find joy in a clear sky. Is it crushing? Things like intervals or in distances? No, it's not just those things being crushed, is it? God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never lament a rainy day. It's crushing and filling in the insufficient time for thinking, isn't it? But which factors aren't? God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never gaze upon a rainbow in the company of others. Which factors aren't anything so convenient now, are they? That instant, hearing Al's words as he broke through the encirclement of the outer brusters to finally stand right before her, a chill ran down Petra's spine. She was unable to actually see Al's eyes, concealed by a steel helmet. Yet, their eyes did meet. That sensation made Petra feel as if her innermost thoughts had been laid bare, a sense of urgency gripping her heart. It seemed to be exclaiming that somehow Al possessed a deeper knowledge of the witch factor than even Petra. Petra! Witch to flowers 8! As the command of the cornered husky voice overlapped with the cry of her beloved within her mind, Petra performed compression on the hesitation that had sprouted within herself. Before distancing herself from Al to escape his clutch, that entire process was compressed, separating them in an instant. Oi, oi, so you can even crush space yourself. The abilities in ReZero are actually fucking crazy, dude. Dude, God, talk about power scaling. Like, I know that like these characters aren't like fucking like casually multiversal or anything like that, but the shit that they can do, oh my goodness, man. Like it's just hacks. It's just hacks. Petra turned to look back, having vanished right before Al's eyes, and watched as he clicked his tongue at his failure to catch her. As Al's shoulders heaved up and down, his distance from Petra had been set back to square one. Between the two of them, as they glared at each other, the Aldabusters, whom Al had exhausted all his efforts to overcome, rose to their feet. In order to reach Petra once again, he would have no choice but to surmount the same hurdles. However, Petra did not feel as though she had bested him in the slightest. Petra, what Al just said a minute ago. I know. He really is resetting. The fact that she said, I know. He really is resetting. They already assume that he's returning by death. Hearing the words of the imaginary Subaru as he floated beside her, Petra narrowed her eyes and gave a nod. It was not as if... I don't think it's too loud. It was not as if she had really been doubting it up until this point, but after witnessing Al's turning back time firsthand, she could not help but feel astonished by how extraordinary it was. Garfield's preemptive strike, the coordinated onslaught from Ram, Blam, and Graces, the three-pronged enclosure by way of compression consisted of Gaston, Ratchins, and Felt. The obstruction of 50 people mobilized in accordance with Ramji's orders. Al had flawlessly dealt with it all. He had surmounted all of that with nothing but the most optimal of solutions. Though, our compression of thoughts should be able to produce similar results. That's just thinking as hard as possible in order to come up with the right answer. As expected, it's a bit different from the powers that Subaru and Al-san hold. You know, I'm not gonna lie. At first, I was kind of thinking that the idea of the compression of thoughts and shit would be too overpowered, but literally, like ReZero's at that point where everything is just broken, so we just throw broken at broken. Like, that's basically how it's working. So it's just like, how can the characters who have the broken abilities use the brokenness more efficiently, effectively than the others? Because dude, there are characters in this series that can do some, oh my god, they can do some absolutely fucking heinous shit. But I digress, man. But they're still not considered top tiers. Echidna, being able to see the past, present, and future. She's damn near omnipresent, especially due to the her tea party, her little sanctuary shit. I'm not saying she's actually omnipresent, but if you're able to see the past, present, and future of the world, look into anyone's memories, essentially, not just on command, but anyone who interacts in the tea party, dude, she has knowledge of other worlds right now. Dude, what? I think that the only thing holding back a lot of the main parts of the plot is the fact that we either haven't met all the characters that were extremely involved. You know what? When I say extremely involved, I was going to follow up with the whole everything that happened 400 years ago, because we don't even know all the people who were involved in the fight with Satella, and we haven't had their backstories yet, or had enough fleshed out for these characters that we know were that to have supposedly existed. We don't have a Book of the Dead for Volcanica because this motherfucker's still alive. We have a Book of the Dead for Reed, but we didn't get to see it because he was being used as his Book of the Dead was being used to fuel the trial version of him. So if we would have gotten that, we would have gotten significantly more information. But if we would have gotten that during Arc 6, that would have, I'm not gonna lie, that probably would have given us too much information, because you're literally giving us one of the people involved with the major fight in real time. Oh shit, I'm not just figuring out how to beat Reed. It's I'm figuring out everything about the Astreas. Like, I'm figuring out everything about like what he knows regarding Satella, Flugel, Echidna, like all the other witches. So like it makes sense that they're like, oh yeah, like the goat himself tried to read Reed's book and he got cooked for it. And he couldn't get anything from it. Like, that makes sense, especially for like how well Tape has been like writing it up until this point, because he's not giving out any freebies. No substantial freebies. So I digress. We're gonna keep this going. Hearing the words of the imaginary Subaru as he floated beside her, Petra narrowed her eyes and gave a nod. It was not as if she had really been doubting it up until this point, but after witnessing Al's turning back time for the first hand, she could not help but feel astonished by how extraordinary it was. Garfield's preemptive strike, the coordinated onslaught of... Wait, I already read this. He had surmounted all of that with nothing but the most optimal of solutions. Though, our compression of thoughts should be... Wait, damn it. Sorry, I went on that like rant. I forgot where I stopped. Oh, wait, okay, right here. Okay. That's just thinking as hard as possible in order to come up with the right answer. As expected, it's a bit different from the powers that Subaru and Alsan hold. If that's true, I guess I should be this strong too. Scratching his head, Subaru lamented his worthlessness, but Petra did not see it the same way. Subaru, in his own Subaru way, had confronted his own authority head-on, and holding tight to the many that ought to have been lost, he had saved Petra and the others. There was not a single shred of worthlessness about him. And on the other hand, to that line of thought, how many times did you need to restart before you got the chance to reach your hand out towards... Oh my god, don't say that. Don't say that, bro. Damn it. Okay, like, if we're counting canon, I'm pretty sure he only died 3 times in the capital at first. I think he died 4 times in the mansion. Well, I mean, like, if that's like saying that you can reach out to the Petra that is here, or like not like here in Arc 9, but like the Petra that he got to extend his hand to in Arc 4, then there's he died like how many times did he die in Arc 3? Like 4? Did he die 4 times in Arc 3 too? No. He died like 6 times in Arc 3. Arc 3. In Arc 3, he first died when... I'm trying to remember like the timeline for it. Shit, wait. Exposing my fraudulentness. I'm not gonna pause it just so you can see me like think about it in real time. I'm trying to think like trying to think of how many times he died in like the first death of Arc 3 was episode 14 when he came back to the mansion and everything was cooked. That was number 1. Or like that was the first one. He died by freezing to death. So that's 1. He came back, tried to like expedite it. He died again. He went into... Okay, like I'm skipping a lot. Like, okay. He shit. He died at the... He died at the mansion again? Like... Wait, did I count? Hold on. Actually, I do have to pause. Give me 1 second. You know what? Okay, so like I did just check Crunchyroll, and like I checked Crunchyroll just to see like the episode like titles, just so I can remember like what deaths happen in each one, like for the director's cut. Because like I was just going based on like individual episode, but I've mostly been watching director's cut on repeat watches. He actually died quite a few times in season 3 / like arc 3. Or sorry, not season 3. Season 1 arc 3, because it was like in the mansion or like in Crucius place, and then he actually had like he had 3 deaths during the Beetlejuice fight. He didn't die at all like during the White Whale fight, which is actually like pretty fucking crazy that was all just like one go. Like that's actually insane. Put respect on my boy's name. It was like during the fight against the Archbishop being Betelgeuse, where I think, well, I'm just gonna say I say Beetlejuice. I know a lot of people say like Betelgeuse and Petalgeuse. Like the name of the actual star is Beetlejuice, bro. It's, you know, wait. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm not. I could be wrong. Beetlejuice is literally Beetlejuice. Yeah. So yeah, Beetlejuice. What the fuck? Betelgeuse. Alright, so I guess it could be like, if we're going off like the AI overview. Sure.
For today,
Press out.
the name of the super giant
Beetlejuice.
star that created a supernova as well.
Anyway, you're only getting this type of shit in my fucking feed. Like we're checking everything. We're making sure like everything is like Gucci and solid. All right. So, let's see. So yeah, she asked, "How many times do you need to restart before you got the chance to reach your hand out towards me?" As far as Petra was aware, Al's strength as a warrior was modest. That was to say, it fell far short of the likes of Ram and Garfield, on a level that could not even contend with Heinkel. What? On a level that could not even contend with Heinkel? I mean, I guess, yeah. Al had made sport of the Outerbrusters all by himself, and was on the verge of putting them into a checkmate. Not even just 10. He might already be on his 20th try. I think it might be a bit more. Hearing Subaru's naive estimation, Petra anticipated the possibility that it would have actually been 10 or 20 times that. In fact, supposing it was Petra in the position of needing to outmaneuver the Autobusters, even if she had an authority that allowed her knowledge of upcoming developments, she was not confident that she would be able to clear it even in 100 attempts. My bad, chat. Not to mention, Al had also managed to sidestep Reinhardt, even if he had also needed to borrow the dragon's strength to do so. In order to accomplish such a feat, just how many of one's heart would one need to kill? If Al's turning back time was truly what Petra and Subaru envisioned, it was truly a power that came at the cost of death like Natsuki Subaru's. Then standing there was a dreadful warlock masquerading in frivolity. Damn it. Al had already conquered the fear and loss of death. No, there existed no human capable of conquering that. If it had to be said, it was not conquest, but numbness. Okay, because I was about to say, if we go back to Arc 7, when they got turned into kids, and Al didn't have his authority anymore, What if that was foreshadowing? That based on Ao's identity, he didn't get his ability until later, but Subaru would have had Ao's. What if, okay. Ao is a construct of Subaru, but Subaru equals Flugel. Flugel was known to supposedly just be like that N-word, right? And despite being weak, he wasn't really like he was considered like untouchable. What if Flugel's initial authority was bestowed upon him by Satella? In an attempt to save her, but like also, let's like, what if the initial version was what Al has, but when she brought Flugel back, being Subaru, that it was like a version of him that is nigh identical to the same one that like fought for the shit, but I mean, like, because I don't think, well, I don't think Flugel would have been like 17, 18 around that time. I don't know. Well, I mean, like, wait. The version of the Echidna in the Tea Party, she looks and is seen as to be like around like 19, 20. But the actual Witch of Greed was older. Ooh, shit. All right, chat. We're gonna keep going. We're only like, or okay, we're like 50 minutes. I gotta go fucking strong. Let's see. In order to accomplish such a feat, just how many of one's heart would one need to go? Okay. Yeah, okay, wait. I am down this far, okay. Damn it, I need to start scrolling, like, faster. God damn it. A being who had gone numb to even the instinct of all living things to fear the distance oneself from death. That was the secret behind Al's strength, and what was tied to his absolute nature as a warlock. In order to surpass that absoluteness, she too would have no choice but to pay a worthy compensation. Petra. It's alright, Subaru. I'll be alright. He was a being who existed only within her mind. Only to the imaginary Subaru, and him alone, had Petra's secret been revealed. One that had neither been disclosed to any of the Autobusters, nor to any members of the Amelia camp. It was something that the warlock before her, deeply knowledgeable about witch factors as he was, had said to her. Upon the one who styled herself the Witch of Tristitia, the likes of a convenient fate smiled not. Even so, something like that isn't any reason for me to stop. Deceiving even herself in such a manner, Petra Lete, the Witch of Tristitia, exercised her authority. In exchange for interfering with the rules of the world, the existence known as herself was relinquishing its future. No matter how precious or irreplaceable that future was, the newly birthed witch did not hesitate whatsoever. $7,011? Even so, something like that isn't any reason for me to stop. Seeing Petra's lips spin those words from afar, Aldebaran could not help but take his hat off. He did not go so far as to actually remove his helmet, but it was to the point that he wanted to do so. After all, was that not so? Truly, Natsuki Subaru's one unforgivable guy. Grinding his teeth, Aldebaran, in his clash against the combined forces, it seemed like they called themselves the Outerbusters. He liked the flare, though he did not wish to consider its origin. Anyway, in his clash against the Outerbusters, until this point, he had uncovered that Petra had taken in the witch factor of Justicia, along with the majority of specifics of how its authority functioned. As with any battle, it was essential to gather as much accurate information about the opponent as possible. This was especially true in battles against Sin Archbishops or witches, and it was often the case that if one confronted such an opponent without a grasp of what sort of authority they were up against, it tended to end in a one-sided killing. The ability to overcome being killed in the first encounter was an advantage possessed by both Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru. Putting that aside, putting that advantage on full display. Sorry, had a phone call. My bad, chat. Anyway, so grinding his teeth, Aldebaran, in his clash against the combined forces, it seemed like they called themselves the Aldebarusters. I don't know why I want to say Aldebarusters. The Aldebusters. He liked the flare, though he did not wish to consider its origin. Anyway, in his clash against the Aldebusters, until this point, he had uncovered that Petra had taken in the witch factor of Justicia, along with the majority of specifics of how the authority functioned. Okay, further than this. This was especially true in battles against Sin Archbishops or witches, and it was often the case that one confronted such an opponent without a grasp of the authority they were up against. It tended to end in a one-sided killing. The ability to overcome being killed in the first encounter was an advantage possessed by both Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru. Putting that advantage on full display, Aldebaran had grasped the authority of Justicia. It was quite the ridiculous ability. The power to crush. To compress space and time was utterly unrivaled in its adaptability and irksome nature. I mean, if you're gonna tell it to me like that, I'm not gonna lie. This may be one of the most disgustingly broken vague abilities ever presented, because the power to crush, to compress space and time, that's not its limitations. If you can hypothetically compress anything, dude, that's what Hector was doing to Roswell. Literally, like fuck, he was like standing, it was like, oh, your ribs are now this small. He was like cooked, like, dude. And when you're someone who's as melancholic as that, if you are of the apathy of like Tristitia, then you can sacrifice a lot. The potential to do, oh my god, you know what? Oh my god, dude. The potential to be able to do anything, but you choose not to do anything, it's almost bordering sloth, which is why Tristitia and like melancholy was later forged or merged into sloth as one of the 7 cardinal sins. And because of that, you're saying like, okay, well, it's not that you don't have the potential to do something, or you don't have the potential of something. You, in this context, ReZero, the authorities, the Warlock of Melancholy / the Warlock of Tristitia shows like, hey, look, I know that there is a chance for potential in anything that I can do, but because he's like, for whatever reason, he's melancholy, he can abuse his ability like constantly, like without even like thinking about it. And that just goes to show that there is a lot more that goes into these witches and these original holders of the witch factors. And like something that like I'll even like ask now, like, dude, was there witches before the first 7 technically like 9 that we know of in the main timeline. Was there anyone before Pandora? Was there anyone like who had envy before the Witch of Envy? I don't know if like he's willing to go that deep into it, but it's very curious, very questionable, very curious, and like, man, we don't even have like all the knowledge of what happened 400 years ago. So I guess we just keep going. Let's see. To top it all off, it seemed like this authority was also capable of performing compression on thoughts. So even with a single second of combat, they were able to think things through thoroughly and pounce at them one after another, with conclusions honed to a razor's edge. This shit, no, like they're literally getting into like some very like fun, silly tiers of fiction for like how broken they are. Aldebaran's territory, it was a difficult problem that could not be easily solved. In fact, in order for him to just slip past a mere 11 seconds of combat, he had needed 7,000 retries. And yet, even after enduring all that, he had failed to catch ever important Petra. Now that the same amount of distance had been opened between them, it would likely take the same or an even greater number of attempts to reach her again. Be that as it may, Valga's affinity with the authority of Justitia is just the worst. He thought it was Valga? Among the members of the Albusters, the figure of Valga Cromwell, who had given him a thorough amount of torment, was present. While not making any use of the large build he had been blessed with, the resourceful monster had been granted an unlimited amount of time to think freely, allowing him to overwhelm Aldebaran by finding the most optimal solutions. It was a nightmarish combination, one akin to armoring a gorilla with a machine gun. If Aldebaran were to dance in the palm of Valga's hand, there was a risk that he would suffer a complete defeat once again. Hence, even if he managed to rob them of their time for thinking, he would not be granted many opportunities for trial and error. Not to mention, it was not Aldebaran's intention to keep allowing them to use the authority of Justitia. That was because the witch factor of Justitia is a defective article. It is a one-of-a-kind factor that was prepared for the valiant. So it was not capable of compatibility with any other. From a different angle, however, it could be said that it is compatible with anyone who is willing to pay the compensation. But humans are created... Humans are creatures who can sell off far too much in exchange for their resolve. So you're implying that Hector wasn't a human. You're implying that this witch factor is potentially artificial. Because are we going off of the idea that the 7 sins are the original, or are we going off of like the base 9 that there were? Lust, envy, wrath, gluttony. Sloth. Fuck, god damn it. You know what? I'm not even gonna like do this, cause like I've been deliberating too long. Information about the witch factor of Justitia told to him by the witch in the past. Perhaps because she had many reservations on the topic, the witch had not been very eager to divulge much concerning the 2 witch factors that ought to be classified as supernumerary. And after running out of patience, her explanations had been surprisingly Loquacious. Oh god, not this. Present in excess of the normal or requisite number. Okay. The witch factor of Justicia would invoke its authority in exchange for the holder's will. The compensation used by the witch factor of Justicia could only be paid by the holder. Oh. Oh. Shit. So she is cooking herself. Natsuki Subaru. When his thoughts arrived at that point, Aldebaran once again felt his indignation surge towards Natsuki Subaru. Of course, Aldebaran did not blind himself to the fact that his own plan of having Petra read the Book of the Dead had played a role in the events that led her to take in the witch factor of Justicia. But if it was Aldebaran who had created the impetus, then it was Natsuki Subaru who carried a significant portion of the responsibility. Considering the relationship between Aldebaran and Natsuki Subaru, saying that much was only natural. Okay, this is a fat one. The large shadow that hung over Petra's life was something that had originated from Natsuki Subaru. Aldebaran would not say that he had harbored malicious intent, nor did he believe that to be the case. But the influence he had over her went without saying, and not limited to just Petra. It could be said that he had exhibited a certain fateful power over even the Aldebusters. No, over many scenarios, even preceding this battle. Regardless, it was a bit ironic to call it a fateful encounter. After all, even though it was none other than Natsuki Subaru and Aldebaran who despised fate the most, it would have been no exaggeration to say that their actions were what decided fate. Upon thinking that, what flashed through Aldebaran's mind were the words of a woman of such brilliant crimson. Back then, the words of praise she had spoken to him in their final time together were attempting to scorch Aldebaran's heart. Deliberately, he averted his gaze and plugged his ears. At this stage, it was far too late for him to reflect on his own actions. That which now sustained Aldebaran was not she whom he had lost, but the oath he had sworn to his teacher. The purpose for which Aldebaran had been born, that which he had been made into Aldebaran to accomplish. The culmination of all that was now being put to rest. For that reason, he had not the time to halt his tracks and think, wait. Isn't this too long? Just a moment's pause, a chance to take a deep breath before the battle resumed. Go. That's what it ought to have been. His opponents did not wish to allow him any breathers. He also did not want to grant his opponents much time. Even though they should have been at such a consensus. How could Aldebaran be engaged in such deep thought? Compress again? Wait, what? Wait. Compress again? Wait, again? Oh shit. Shit. This is strange. What is this? What did she say? Far in the distance. He can tell that Petra had moved her lips, one syllable at a time. He would pick up the sound those lips had weaved, everything that had been thrown in. Wow. He was thinking, and he picked it all up and collected it together. Slow, sluggish, far too laggard. Collect the meaning, collect the significance, collect the intent. It was no use. He could not silence his thoughts. He would just have to think. Compress. Crushing, huh? Crushing. What exactly? Agony? Pain. Anguish. Suffering. Suffering? Concerns. Thoughts. Unraveling. Fuck, she got me. They've been compressed. My thoughts have been compressed. Damn! That's broken. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never divulge this important secret. Compressed agony. A compression of thoughts by way of the authorities of Justitia, a powerful buff effect consisting of speeding up her allies' thoughts, omitting any need for discussion, and allowing them to take the most optimal measures after thorough consideration from everyone. Conferring that onto Al was one of the countermeasures Petra had prepared against him. When you have too many things to think about, your head will get punctured. Damn it. Hold on. Okay. Damn it. I went too far. Oh, wait. Oh, no. I was trying to like figure out like what. Okay. Shit. This is strange. What is this? What did she say? Far in the distance, he could tell that Petra had moved her lips, one syllable at a time. He would pick up the sound from those lips he waved. Or lips had weaved. Everything that had been thrown in while he was thinking. He picked it up. He picked it all up. And collected it together. Slow. Sluggish. Far too laggard. Collect the meaning. Collect the significance. Collect the intent. It was no use. He could not silence his thoughts. He would just have to think. Compress. Compressing, huh? Crushing? What exactly? Agony? Pain? Anguish? Suffering? Suffering. Concerns. Thoughts. Unraveling. Fuck. She got me. They have been compressed. My thoughts have been compressed. That's actually crazy now that I'm like re-evaluating it. Because like that's leaving him no room to figure out what's happening. Oh God, peak. God, Buddha, Atlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never divulge this important secret. Compressed agony. A compression of thoughts by which of the authority of Justitia, a powerful buff effect consisting of speeding up her allies' thoughts, omitting any need for discussion, and allowing them to make the most optimal measures after thorough consideration from everyone. Conferring that onto Al was one of the countermeasures Petra had prepared against him. When you have too many things to think about, your head will get punctured. While it might have been presumptuous, Petra prided herself on being the third most knowledgeable in the world about the turning back time of return by death, just behind Suru and Al. Yeah. I don't know. Like, sure. Yeah, I can see that. You know, because like, so Tella doesn't know about like the turn by death. Like, she doesn't know like what you see when you go. Okay, all right. Okay, fair. I'd argue that Echidna, but like she has to see her memories to see that shit though. She's not just seeing it. Petra had acquired that scholarship from the a vicarious experience of the death tasted by Subaru. So she had discovered a way to nullify, no, to overheat the seemingly invincible authority of Al. That being to overload his mind with accelerated thoughts. In the past, when the royal selection had first commenced, Subaru had gotten into a fight and parted with Amelia in the royal capital, and that the large amount of stress and mental burden that came as a result wore down his heart. Inadvertently, Rem's devotion to his anger toward the Sin Archbishop had given him the chance to get back on his feet, but it was a fact that he had lost his will to fight, ending up as an empty husk. Even if only temporarily, she would create that effect. Since Al had already gone numb to the fear of death, it was likely that he would not lose heart no matter how many deaths had accreted. Nonetheless, even if he had decided to make an enemy of the world, Al was still human. Rifts would form in his mind, and he would be unable to avoid having it come apart at the seams. She would make it so. For that purpose, no matter what she needed to give up in exchange. Expand territory! Matrix redefinition! While tormented by the acceleration of thoughts, Al could be heard silently voicing those words. Oh, so he has to say it. Okay. He probably doesn't have to say it. His mind might have been under a high burden, but this situation was still a double-edged sword. The odds were even. Either Al's heart would give out from extreme exhaustion, or he would make full sense of the compression of his mind like the Outer Brusters to fend off Petra and the others. Hence, the battle from this point onward was a do or die for the Outer Busters in the truest sense. Everyone, it's only just getting started. Don't lose focus. Yeah. Oh, shit. Shit, something flew into my eye. Jesus Christ, what the fuck? Oh, hold on, chat. Oh, sorry, like I indeed had like a fly land into my eye. Crazy. Okay. Shit. Alright. At Petra's encouragement, her allies whose interactions had been compressed cheered in response. Finding that to be reliable, she was about to look out over the decisive battle against Al starting from square one. Then she noticed. Among those who had given her that reassuring response, there was something whose voice she had not heard. Someone whose voice she had not heard. It was possible that they had just missed the timing, but feeling a peculiar sense of discomfort in that, Petra glanced over in that direction, searching for the figure of the person who had given no response. And then she found him. Ramoji-san? She found the figure of the great strategist who had given no response, the old giant who bore the duty of observing the battlefield and giving timely and accurate commands, his eyes having gone white as he slowly collapsed onto the ground. Let us rewind the clock a mere moments prior. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Indeed, upon hearing Aldebaran declare those words, a tremor ran through Ramji's large shoulders. Upon bearing witness to the sight of Aldebaran standing still before the combined forces, Ramji felt an unnatural discomfort settle within him, causing him to stiffen as he motionlessly widened his eyes. Ramji was well aware of Petra's stratagem that applied the authority of Justitia. Her strategy revolved around accelerating Aldebaran's thoughts, placing a burden on his mind to fully exhaust him in one fell swoop. Ramji had also deemed it a necessary step in order to take down Aldebaran, given his ability to perform something akin to turning back time, and thus he had promised to cooperate with her, or with it. He had harbored some apprehensions towards speeding up Aldebaran's thoughts, but since they were also compressing their own thoughts to arrive at the best possible answer, he accepted that it would just boil down to their overall strength. If that was their course of action, Ramji also felt felt like he could lend his own strength. And as it so happened, the battle against Aldebaran had gone just about exactly how Ramji had expected it to. His comrades mobilized quickly and successfully managed to drive Aldebaran into a corner. But, much to the shock of Ramji, his discomposure would commence from that moment onward. Expand territory! Matrix redefinition! Indeed, as Aldebaran declared so, Ramji's position shifted in an instant. No, it was not only Ramji whose position had shifted. The positions of Aldebaran, Felt, and everyone else participating in the battle returned to where they had stood a mere 10 odd seconds prior, and recommenced from there. And Ramji had already experienced that same phenomenon 5 times now. What in tarnation is this situation? Craning his neck all around, Ramji gathered that he was amidst the same scenery he had witnessed 5 times now, and wrung those words out in a solemn tone. Oh! He's the aggressor! Oh! Everyone is only just getting started. Don't lose focus. Yeah! As proof of that, everyone other than Ramji responded to Petra's rousing voice of leadership. Then, they all faced Aldebaran and sprung at him in unison. Ramji, give us orders! Failing to notice his discomposure, Felt searched for a position to attack from with Star Staff in hand. The allies other than Felt, who also possessed techniques that could serve as the deciding factor, were also running while awaiting Ramji's commands. Watching their backs, Ramji gulped down his bitter saliva and shouted out commands differing to the ones from just before. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Now, for the 6th time, the final battle against Aldebaran commenced. Damn it. Damn it. Aldebaran's territory was an authority linked to a witch factor. However, Aldebaran was not the holder of a witch factor. The witch had called this supernumerary, or a special case. But Aldebaran believed that instead of such sweet-sounding words, it ought to be declared as appropriated or unenumerated. This phenomenon had a precedent. For instance, having once possessed authorities, the witches of sin still retained the same powers even after being reduced to souls post-mortem. On this matter, the witch had likened witch factors to keys with the capacity to open the door that granted one the right to interfere with this world. She had conjectured that once the door was open, it would perhaps remain open even if the key was lost. Albeit, in that case, even if it could explain the witches of sin, it would be unable to explain Aldebaran or even the witch herself. So, in conformance with this, she had proposed the theory of inheritance. That possibility, a profound connection to a being who was compatible with a witch factor, would innately open the door to the right to interfere with the world, to an authority. However, just as how a being with wings might find it difficult to explain the sensation of moving their wings to someone bereft of them, it is difficult to explain our authorities, as they are not appended post haste. You could say that our doors were half open by birth. The reason why the witch had worn a smug grin as she said that was likely because it was her best attempt at humor. Unfortunately, Aldebaran did not laugh in the slightest, but he could at least assent to the point she was making. Certainly, if the door had been fully open, the airflow would have likely been much better. He was merely peeking through a gap in the door with poor airflow, trying to reach his hand through to the other side. Hence, the door would obstruct him, trapping his hand and causing unforeseen consequences. If, like the witch, he could be satisfied without opening the door, perhaps it would have been better for him. However, Aldebaran was far too banal and far too helpless for that. If he did not keep the door open, Aldebaran would have had no chance of fulfilling the duty the witch expected of him. In that case, Aldebaran had no choice but to keep the door open, even if it was only ajar. Ergo, just like a half-open door, there were many opaque aspects of Aldebaran's authority. From his hands-on experience with using it, as well as the witch's own interferences, he had a grasp on around 80% of the complete picture. Even so, Aldebaran faced no impediments to the use of his authority, nor did he ever hesitate to use it. That might be perceived as dangerous, but it was the same as how using a cell phone without fully knowing how a cell phone worked would not pose any threat to one's life. But then again, Aldebaran's authority was intimately tied to life, so the circumstances might differ slightly to those of a cell phone. In any case, although his authority had accompanied him through a perceived time that spanned the length of over 10 lifetimes, the territory was largely a black box. The bug that would sometimes occur was the utmost extremity of that. The bug that would occur within the territory was a phenomenon whereby the holder of initiative within that exhausted matrix would be transformed from Aldebaran, or transferred from Aldebaran onto a different figure, or to a different target. Normally, by creating a territory of his own volition, Aldebaran would be permitted an unlimited number at attempts only within that defined space and time. During that interval, it was a given that Aldebaran would maintain his own continuity of memories, carrying out different approaches with each attempt as he searched for a breakthrough. However, whenever some discrepancy in the starting parameters caused this bug to occur, the right to redo events within the territory would transfer to another person within the matrix, and until the territory was lifted. They would be stuck repeating in an unending matrix in perpetuity. This bug, which had never manifested back during his days with the witch, was something Aldebaran suspected had developed as a result of having lost faith in his authority following his defeat in his first battle. In fact, the bug invariably occurred at points when Aldebaran doubted his own authority. One such example was long ago on the Gladiator Island, when he had been pitted against a formidable enemy in a death match he had nary a chance in a million of winning. Thereafter, as well, when Aldebaran had wavered on his position in a clash against Leap Burial, or when he had fought Ye after she was sent to assassinate Priscilla, this bug had occurred. Above all, how fascinating. Transferring the initiative of an authority onto another party. I've never heard of anything like that. When Aldebaran challenged the Witch of Greed who greeted him at the Castle of Dreams, that had occurred. It was quite the uncommon experience. I see. So that is the world you behold. Certainly, if you are unable to decipher what might be causing it, it would likely be a rather maddening phenomenon. He had clashed at the completely altered Witch of Greed, demanding that she return the witch he knew. Having launched attacks on her own from every conceivable direction, when his creativity and trial and error had proven completely ineffective, What sprouted within Aldebaran was a skepticism towards his authority, and as if to prove that, the bug surfaced. An alteration yielded from uncertainty towards the absolute nature of your authority. That is to say, a power derived from your weakness. A pity that it seems to be completely ineffective against those already lost to madness. That goes for her, and for me. Stella. As Aldebaran stood baffled, the Witch of Greed spoke in depth of the hell she had tasted. Certainly, that was the world of the territory Aldebaran knew, while also something decidedly different at the same time. Just how on earth the Witch of Greed had managed to endure it, he knew not. As the Witch of Greed had said herself, was it because she was not sane? In the majority of cases, when you exercise your authority, you are the weaker party. You cling to the territory in order to locate an infinitesimal chance of victory, wrench it open, and at last grasp onto it. The victim, so to speak. Thus, if we declare the party whose forces your use of the territory as being the aggressor, this would be an exchange of initiative between victim and aggressor. Watching as the Witch of Greed gleefully divulged the reality of hell, Aldebaran felt all the blood throughout his body grow cold, understanding that it was none other than a nightmare of his own creation. The castle of dreams having been turned into a nightmare, the bug that had been yielded in the territory, it was all the result of Aldebaran's weakness. It was a punishment borne by the unforgivable sin known as weakness. The plan is still underway. The primary objective may be stuck at an impasse, but the secondary objective remains intact. The best we can accomplish with what little we have, that is the purpose for which both you and I are currently here. Is that not so? That sin was his cross to bear. Yet, as it weighed too heavy on his shoulders to carry it on his own, he had nearly abandoned it, and so the Witch of Greed sneered at him, agreeing to drag it forth alongside him. Indeed, that smile, one he had longed to see, yet one he had not wished to see. Aldebaran resolved himself. No matter what, definitely kill you. The territory's bug, even that power derived from his own weakness, even that branding of his defeat, by putting it to use, Aldebaran would carry out his duty as the following star. Why must love fade? The Witch of Greed whispered such a musing, but the answer to it, Aldebaran did not know. He had lost the witch who sought love, lost the Sun Princess he had loved, and yet, still, he did not know. Neither did he wish to know. His thoughts were accelerating. Amidst the thoughts that had likely been condensed by the authority held by Petra, Aldebaran was unable to establish a priority order for the flood of thoughts ceaselessly inunding him, pushing his mind to the verge of bursting. Shit. It was a fearsome authority. Unlike divine protections that could be hit or miss in their effectiveness, most authorities would invoke supernatural powers far transcending the norm, and Petra's compression was no exception. Authorities tended to be as powerful as the witch factor holder's mind was flexible, but in that regard, her adaptability was far too high. It was either the result of unnaturally strong convictions or reflexively born out of weakness. The talent to draw out a powerful ability from a witch factor was greatly tied to one's mentality. The witches of sin and the Sin Archbishops would have been the former, while Aldebaran and Petra would likely fall into the latter category. Thus, whether it was people blessed with divine protections, people compatible with a witch factor, or even people with no abilities whatsoever, the ones who perceived Aldebaran to be formidable always fell into the latter category. In fact, the attack that had aimed to compress Aldebaran's thoughts had been as immediately effective as his opponent had hoped. For Aldebaran, who wished to avoid mental exhaustion, it scored full marks on nastiness as it whittled away at his remaining strength. Disregarding his authority, Aldebaran was also on the weaker side. In a battle that necessitated moment-to-moment decision-making, he fully understood the usefulness of a power that always allowed one to find the best course of action. But usually, no matter how much one endeavored during the battle, they could never hope for perfection. Ergo, it was necessary to eventually make a decision, cease one's thoughts, and take the leap into action. Petra's compression forced the blank spaces in thoughts that would have originally been discarded to be filled, imposing over double the amount of exhaustion just to even reach the same conclusion. Hence, in exchange for that enormous waste of his mental capacity, Aldebaran had to keep up the utmost extremity in responses, akin to threading a needle, as he formulated the most optimal maneuver against the highly motivated Outbusters. I'm gonna pause right here. Okay, we are back. I had to take like some time off. Anyway, so let's see. The last thing that I read. Okay. I'm just gonna start from right here. Disregarding his... Actually, I want that to be a little bit louder. Hopefully that's not echoing either. Disregarding his authority, Aldebaran was also on the weaker side. In a battle that necessitated moment-to-moment decision-making, he fully understood the usefulness of a power that always allowed one to find the best course of action. But usually, no matter how much one endeavored during a battle, they could never hope for perfection. Ergo, it was necessary to eventually make a decision, cease one's thoughts, and take the leap into action. Petra's compression forced the blank spaces in thoughts that would have originally been discarded to be filled, imposing over double the amount of exhaustion just to even reach the same conclusion. Hence, in exchange for that enormous waste of his mental capacity, Aldebaran had to keep up the utmost extremity in responses, akin to threading a needle as he formulated the most optimal maneuver against the highly motivated Outbusters. And then, right in the middle of that exhaustion, Ramji! Just after tiding over the offenses of the Outbusters, what struck his ears was a voice akin to a scream. With that exclamation, Felt stood wide-eyed, watching as the large man of advanced age collapsed in the distance. That instant, not only Felt, but other members of the Outbusters too experienced a sense of unease tremor through their hearts. Before they even knew what had transpired, Valga Cromwell had fallen. Naturally, even if they did not know the method, there was only one person who could have been responsible. As a result, excluding the ones who went rushing to Valga's side, the hostility of everyone else was concentrated on Aldebaran. While receiving their animosity, Aldebaran, unseen to them from within his helmet, was motionlessly widening his eyes with the same shock as the Outbusters had received. He became the aggressor of the territory, didn't he? It was not as though he had aimed to activate it, but since he was the cause, he knew exactly what had transpired. The territory's bug had occurred, causing Valga, one of the aggressors, to be handed the initiative. Then, it was likely that the old giant had repeated those brief few moments enough times for his heart to be crushed. At the arrival of a chance that could not have been described as being rescued from the brink of death, or as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Aldebaran did not welcome it. As previously... Hold on. Sorry, I just woke up. My brain isn't working. By the way, I'm finishing this recording on Thanksgiving, so happy Thanksgiving, everyone. And that's when the video's going up, so happy Thanksgiving. This theme goes crazy. What is this called? Oh, it's just called Sloth. That's dope. Also, oops. Also, shout out to Serena. Where am I? Oh, okay. As mentioned previously, the occurrence of the bug was unrelated to Aldebaran's volition. At the very least, it was not something actively invoked. Thus, the activation of the bug was something Aldebaran took no joy in. After all, in the majority of cases, the bug would destroy the hearts of whomever it targeted. On Gladiator Island, with Sir Leap, even with Ye, facing off against Aldebaran, who were engulfed by the territory's bug, caught in an inescapable loop of death, all ended up suffering some mental abnormality. The gladiators whose hearts were shattered proceeded to have their heads chopped off by Aldebaran. Leap Burial lost his sanity, entirely forgetting about his long-held ambition, and Ye Tenzin succumbed to dread and was thus transformed into his loyal servant. Having levied the condition of no killing upon the execution of his plan, the way Aldebaran saw things, the territory's bug distorting the hearts of its victims beyond recognition could only bring about an end synonymous with death. Hence, Aldebaran took no joy in this conclusion. Was that really true? There is nobody who can defeat you, you whom I created. The voice of the witch he had once betrayed, her expectations, her ideals, now sounded within him. Faced with the tenacity, strategy, and unity of his opponents, he exercised fear toward the 1 in a million, uncertainty toward the 1 in a billion, and doubt toward the 1 in a trillion. In doing so, the conditions to invoke the territory's bug were met. Those were, so to speak, because Aldebaran had questioned his authority himself and the witch. Is that what activates it? So he genuinely has to question himself and his ability. Like, essentially, oh yeah, okay, so yeah. So essentially, if he gets to the point where he's looping and he keeps trying and he's basically put up against the wall, and it seems like he's questioning either himself or the witch, that's when it invokes the reverse. That's interesting. So like, and that's why it says he exercised fear towards the 1 in a million, uncertainty toward the 1 in a billion, and doubt toward the 1 in a trillion, because he's died so many times, like he doesn't really care. He doesn't care anymore. But if anything ever convinces him otherwise, even slightly, that's when it activates. Makes sense. Then he watched as the subsequent aggressor collapsed to the ground, their eyes having gone white. God, Buddha, Ad Lagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never cherish silence. Damn it. Ramoji-san! The situation shifted, and in an unfavorable direction for Petra's side at that. Watching as Ramji's large body suddenly began to sway, collapsing to the ground, Petra greatly widened her eyes. What the fuck? Surging forth within her chest was a multitude of emotions, composed of shock, bafflement, incomprehensibility, and discomposure. They seemed as if they were about to overwhelm her entire body, but Petra! A loud bark from the imaginary Subaru was just barely able to keep Petra's consciousness from going over the edge. It was fine. To be surprised by unforeseen circumstances, there existed not a single person who could remain unshaken after receiving a hit from outside their consciousness. However, with the Witch of Tristitia, there was something Petra needed to do before being surprised. In response to the events that had unfolded, she needed to compress every last reaction. Whoa. This isn't a joke! Something's happening! Someone go get Ramji's backup! Don't be unreasonable. His eyes just went wide all of a sudden. What happened to him? Oi! What are we gonna do? Without the old man, who's gonna... Shit! It's Ram! It's gotta be Ram! I suppose it can't be helped. The Queen will be leaving the board. Do keep that in mind. If we don't move right away, we'll be no better than pigs waiting for scraps. I'll make the first move. Damn it, we can't lose after coming this far. Naturally. Damn, that's cool. That's cool. Compressing the unrest that had spread around all into a single instant, Petra fulfilled her duty as the Witch of Tristitia. That caused yet... Wait. Sorry, I fucking blinked. The cause had yet to be identified. However, they immediately decided on how to respond, with everyone beginning to search for the best course of action in unison. Naturally, Petra was no exception. Leaving the situation to Ram, who had taken on the role of commander from the collapsed Ramji, Petra invoked the authority of Tristitia to compress the traversal distance between herself and Ramji. Ramoji-san. Having fallen flat on his face, Ramji's large body could not be lifted by Petra's slender arms. But, peering into the side-turned countenance of the old man, or the old giant, Petra choked up at the evident abnormality. Ramji's visage appeared lifeless, giving off a sense of fatigue as if he had aged 100 years in an instant. Though he never really looked like he was bursting with lively energy to begin with. He wasn't like this up until a moment ago. That's for sure. Besides, if he thought there was something strange with his physical condition, Ramoji-san would have surely done the proper reporting contact and discussion. Ramji was well aware that if he carelessly concealed the abnormality in his condition, it would only serve to benefit the enemy. If the authority of Tristitia had been placing an abundance of burden on him, and there had been no signs he would faint like this, he absolutely would have informed them himself. What about the unfunny theory that Ramji used up all his remaining lifespan due to the rapid firing of the authority? That's really not funny. So theory rejected. Still, I don't think it was my authority. Ao-san had to have done something to Ramoji-san. But what exactly? Ending up at the same dead-end question, Petra and Subaru puzzled for an answer. Even now, since the Autobusters were operating under Ram's commands, fighting on in an effort to corner Al, Petra could not afford to divert all her attention to figuring out Ramji's collapse. With that in mind, Petra was about to stand back up. You goddamn idiot! That's the priority! Ooh, I was waiting for that burp. Indeed, with her back facing this direction, Felt corrected the order of priority without hesitation. As Petra stared in wonder, Felt, with the star staff in hand as she flashed her sharp, high canines. If you can somehow figure out what just happened, we'll all be taken down with the same method. As if to prove Felt's words, as she grit her teeth in frustration, the members of the Autobusters, who ought to have been driving Al into a corner, were decreasing. At a glance, several people had fallen to the ground, left behind by the fierce battle unfolding. From how Felt had put it, the reason they had collapsed would have been the same as Ramji. Ramji wouldn't go down without a fight. Keep searching. There's got to be something. Having expended a few seconds in her interaction with Felt, Petra looked at Ramji's large body. She also considered Ramji to be someone who, without any oversights, would live up to Felt's expectations. Hence, if Felt believed that there had to be something, then there was undoubtedly something. I mean, if you suddenly get hit with an authority, there's no way you'd be able to leave any clues behind. You think it's an authority? It'd be strange if it wasn't. Ne-sama would have realized if it was magic. Right. Felt's insistence crossed faith in Ram's insight. The multiplication of those two factors led credence to the idea that it was Al's authority that had toppled Ramji. And so, if Ramji had truly left something behind, here! Upon thoroughly investigating Ramji's body, which was lying loungedly sprawled on the ground, Petra noticed that the old giant's fingers were covered in dirt. And what had caused it to be dirty was the mark he had scratched into the ground with his finger. Bro, if this motherfucker wrote down tallies for how many times he had to like refight Al, this motherfucker is insane. That was a mark. Kanji. Nah. Some sort of map symbol. Not that. It's more simple. At Subaru's speculation, upon witnessing the same thing, Petra put the brakes on his... God damn it. There we go. The mark that Ramji inscribed on the ground was a thick horizontal line with 4 small vertical lines layered over it. It was not kanji or a map symbol. It was tally markers that counted up the number 5 in a single unit. In other words, just before Ramji had lost his consciousness, he was counting something? Bro, dude. The territory's bug had begun to encroach upon Aldebaran's plan. Shit. Faced with that aggravating reality, a curse escaped through the gaps between Aldebaran's clenched teeth. The first one to fall had been the strategist of the Aldebarsters, Valga Cromwell. Despite the loss of their commander, was it Petra's... Wait, hold on. Ran down just a little bit. Was it Petra's authority that had allowed them to recover so quickly? But if its effects was just crushing the interval, then it meant that everybody had managed to collect their emotions through their own individual strength. Each time he keenly felt the strength in each and every one of their hearts. Aldebaran's own weakness was brought into focus. Also, I have a random question though. So, okay. If Aldebaran, wait, why is it that Al can be affected by gluttony, but Subaru can't, when they basically have the same authority and the same involvement with witches? Subaru has to have, dude, Subaru has some types of level of resistance against existence erasure. I don't know why that just came to me just now, but because I was thinking about the REM flash grenade that they used, and how well, I mean, Al's memories are already really cooked, but anyway, whatever. Shit. In that instant, as he thought about his own immaturity, the Aldebarsters suffered yet another dropout. A thug brandishing a large machete fell to his knees, fainting as he spewed yellow gastric juices. Aldebaran made no counterattacks of his own. He could not. As a fundamental tactic, he was being repelled by Garfield, whose base stats were on a much higher level, leaving him unable to mount a counteroffensive. Even so, his opponents had gradually been bleeding strength as the result of Aldebaran's unintended bug. There is nobody who can defeat you, you whom I created. Once again, he heard the witch's voice. As soon as he did, the subsequent bug was activated, and another body hit the ground. So wait, how many times are they going through these individual like loops? Because like it can't be multiple people at the same time like dropping. It has to be like instances of it, right? That was difficult for Aldebaran. It was painful, unbearable. The mental abrasion produced by the territory's bug, the fact that it sometimes would beget an outcome more repulsive than death of the body, was something Aldebaran had come to learn in his days since waking up on the Gladiator Island. Hence, Aldebaran did not desire any such unintended conclusions to be brought about by the territory's bug. The hell are you doing blaming others for? Huh? It's obvious. Even without needing to see your face. Wait. It also pisses me off when people like Reinhardt wear a face that seems to say that everything's their own fault. But yours is way worse than his could ever be. Who the fuck? Shaping a gap and forcing his way through the breach, Aldebaran found Felt glaring at him from across the human wall of the Aldebusters. Dwelling within her sharp crimson gaze was a stern, scornful ire directed towards Aldebaran, bereft of lie or falsehood. This was an ardent fury, one that she had not even displayed when he had taken her hostage, nor when it was Felt, nor when he had ordered Roy to eat her memories. So he could not fathom what he had done in this moment to truly incur her wrath. Neither the fall of the giant, who was like family to her, nor the near robbery of the past she had forged until this point, the source of this ire that Felt now directed towards Aldebaran was. I just saw the princess. I feel like this line might get me emotional. Turn this up just like a tiny bit. When that princess was around, you do whatever she told you. So now that she's no longer among us, you're just gonna do whatever a totally different person says like a puppet? Even though you've got the nerve to talk all big and declare yourself the enemy of the entire world, do you really have no personhood to call your own? Ooh. Damn, Felt. Get him, Felt. Spoken with an expression of anger from the very depths of her soul, Felt's words caused Aldebaran's cheeks to stiffen ever so slightly. And following that, his rage began to well up at the jabs of this utterly ignorant teenage girl. To say, oh yeah, she's like probably like 16 or something right now. Wait, how old is Petra now? Petra's like 13? There's so many little girls in this fucking show, bro. I mean, there's also a lot of old motherfuckers too, so. Anyway, to say he had no personhood, even thoughtless declarations had their limits, without even knowing the reason why Aldebaran could never call himself anything but Aldebaran. How dare she claim that Aldebaran had no personhood? Indignation scorched his entrails, and he sensed a nostalgic pain in his arm bereft of his forearm. This kind of useless rage ought to be cast aside. It was supposed to be his strong suit, to dismiss things, to scorn them, to ridicule them as being naught but obstacles in his way, and to cast them aside. Getting entangled with such things and losing sight of his objective would just be putting the carriage before the ground dragon after all. Avoidance of confronting his rage, genuine emotions was Aldebaran's special skill. No, it was a certain kind of worldly wisdom that he had acquired during the 18 years since he had been released from that black orb. Huh? Wait. So the All Shamuk, it didn't send him it didn't technically send him into the past or into the future. It sealed him for 400 years? How the fuck? What made him get out then? Goodness gracious. I almost said, anyway. And so this time, he would do the same. Exactly. That's weird to say. Exactly as the amazing. Damn it. I'm just gonna read this shit normally. Like fuck this. Is exactly as the amazing felt told you. Hey, well here, let me scroll down more. Pay for what you've done, bastard. Drop dead, you moron. Nobody's got your back anymore, bastard. Alsama, prepare yourself. The hour of judgment. Go ahead and cry like a pig. Truly a fool. With the force of a surging wave, a torrent of abuse crashed into Aldebaran like a tempest of disdain. He attempted to ignore them like he usually with his thoughts compressed. That was weird wording. He was forced to confront them all. With his preceding circuits shortened to speed far beyond normal, he was left being made to process every last superfluous thought and emotion. There's nobody who can defeat you. You whom I created. There's nobody who can defeat you. You whom I created. I'm not going to repeat that many times. As Aldebaran felt an urgency to not allow such a progression, a voice drowned out everything within his mind. Loath to surrender himself to that, Aldebaran searched for the girl at the root of the situation. To the Witch of Tristitia, who had forced Aldebaran to deliberate over every last thing he would. He was counting something. Having spotted the Witch of Tristitia, Petrolete, in the distance, he could make out that she had muttered those words upon discovering some sort of message left by the collapsed Volga Cromwell. That instant, a thick, blackish, ardent impulse began to brim. That instant, a thick, blackish, ardent impulse began to brim over from within Aldebaran, taking on the form of words. Your stars were bad. Yeah, there you go. You're nobody's puppet. Now your true feelings are finally showing. Hearing Aldebaran's words, woven by a voice tinged with torrid fury, Felt flashed her teeth. Even though no part of that should have resembled her in the slightest. Not whatsoever. Not a single millimeter, nor a single shred, nor a single iota. It appeared to him as a smile, of the same nature as the one Priscilla Burial would often display. A nightmare. As such, he must extinguish it. Thus, for the first time in his life, Aldebaran willfully invoked the bug of the territory. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. Kept hearing my phone vibrate in the back. Is on charger. Anyway. God, Buddha, Adlagna, for as long as I live, I hereby vow to never wish for kindness from anyone. That's crazy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like it's just like there have been so many sacrifices, and I have an inkling as to why certain people have been saying that the recent chapters can be controversial. I haven't read them yet. I have an inkling as to what happened. I just gotta see how it plays out. And currently, Witch Cult doesn't have 57. Oh! 57's up. Okay. Wait. 13 hours ago. Okay. Wait, but like, is 58 up too? Damn it. Shit, this is gonna be weird because like I have to. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna read Petra Lete as a single chapter and then 57 and 58 together. Or wait. Someone told me that I have to read 2 chapters like back to back specifically. The fuck? You know what? I'm sorry. I can't listen to that. I'll listen to this though. Yeah. Sorry. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. As Al's voice spoke those words, Petra turned around whilst sensing a certain alteration. She had already heard the battle cry several times over over the duration of this battle, and likely it was some sort of activation requirement for Al's authority in a territory with a matrix, as Ramji had surmised beforehand. In exchange for the limitations of Al's turning back time, it seemed to be quite a powerful ability. Its time frame was far shorter than Natsuki Subaru's return by death, yet it was consciously activated. If it was possible to manually save in a baseball game, then you could be able to save and load for each ball in the batter's box, remember what type of pitch it is, and then keep hitting home runs every time. By the way, if you guys aren't hip to Shin Megami Tensei, especially SMT5, you're going to start to hear more of that music, and let me know how y'all feel about it. Anyway, I get it, but it's tricky to understand. Can you really do that sort of thing? It's a bit difficult to explain to a girl who only knows the concept of a game on a surface level. For having read Natsuki Subaru's Book of the Dead, she had intended on understanding it past the surface level, but in a sense that they were memories that did not come alongside first-hand experience. What the imaginary Subaru was saying was correct. Although she was peering into Subaru's memories, Petra's sensibility remained entirely her own. Though of course, as with her feelings towards Amelia and Rem, what mattered most in that regard was how large a portion those emotions occupied within Subaru. In any case, you can't let him out of sight. You know, with the change in his voice and demeanor, the battle against Al was likely advancing to the next stage. All the while, he had been whittling down their combat strength using the same method he had used on Ramji. Yet, miraculously, the Outerbrusters' main force, centered around Ram, Garfield, and Felt, still held strong. There was no doubt that the compressed thinking and communications were proving to be a great help. So Petra found it worthwhile to extract the absolute most value out of utilizing the authority of Justitia, shutting her eyes to its many demerits. Let's get him, you bastards! Why you gotta talk shit? They're your boys. Yeah! Woo! Yeah! Sorry, I'm trying to have like a little bit of fun with it because like this shit is peak. Like this shit is so peak. I've thoroughly enjoyed this arc so far, and it's making me a little sad because we keep inching closer and closer to the end of ReZero. And I know this is like quite early, like we're literally just on like the ending parts of arc 9 out of 12, but it's anyway. As if to substantiate Petra's determination, the overall morale of the group erupted with Felt's arousing cry. The pressure being applied by the Outerbrusters was certainly chipping away at Al's reserves, abrading his mind as it drove his heart and body to a lethal point of exhaustion. It would all come down to whoever's willpower ran out first, a test of endurance until one side could no longer remain standing. Indeed, it had happened at the moment Petra clenched her teeth, with her body and mind roused to high spirits. Huh? In spite of herself, Her tightly clenched jaw dropped a gap, leaving Petra dumbfounded. That was only natural, after all. It was only just a moment ago that the Outer Busters had fired themselves up, brimming with motivation as they triumphantly launched their all-out assault on Al. Those members of the Outer Busters, without any warning, suddenly began toppling down where they stood like dominoes, unable to do a thing about it. To include Ram and Garfield too, or that included Ram and Garfield too. It of course included the memories of the main force. The members of the main force, Belt, Blam, and Grassus, Ratchins, Gaston, Camberley, Doltero, and even the rest of the members of the Outer Busters all lost their strength. Not a single person was left standing. Some fainted, some had their eyes lose focus as a result of extreme exhaustion, and some were petrified like dolls, becoming unable to move. Everyone. It was all of them. No, there was still one person who remained standing. It's the stars. Climbing over the wall of collapsed Aldebusters. I keep wanting to say Aldebaran, but anyway. The person who had stepped forth while fiddling with the metal fixtures on the back steel helmet on his head spilled those words. As they reached her ears, Petra felt as if a part of her brain had gone numb, unable to put her head to good use. She could not afford to cease thinking. Even if compression could fill in the intervals between events that happened, it would serve no use in filling the expanse of void. Your stars were bad. Declaring so as he approached her, Al removed his hand from his helmet and reached out to Petra, standing motionless as she was. Right in this instant, she needed a way to deal with it, a response, a countermeasure. Petra, fall back with compression! Reflectively following the angry-sounding plea, Petra compressed space, retreating a great distance backwards. Having created a much greater distance between them than simply jumping backwards would have, Petra's knee trembled as she gazed at Al across the rocky terrain. Receiving her gaze, Al repeatedly opened and closed the hand that failed to grab Petra and breathed a long sigh. Then, with the distance open between himself and Petra, he glared directly right back at her. Play ball. I'm trying to. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna wait till I read it like a little bit more. Expand territory. Matrix redefinition. It was the moment she thought she had heard Al say that catchphrase that was typically used to declare the start of a ball game. As if to overlap with that expression, a different declaration of Al's followed just after. At that phenomenon of simultaneous utterance from the same person, Petra's brain momentarily came to a halt as it attempted to grasp the situation. But as that stagnation would have been fatal, she immediately attempted to pull herself together. Let's get 'em, you bastards! Yeah! Huh? The very next moment, a courageous cheer and response shook the air, and she was stupefied. Spread out before her, alive and well, were the figures of the Outer Busters, who were supposed to have been plunged into a catastrophic state mere moments ago. In a battle formation with Ram as the commander, Garfield as the vanguard, and felt ready with the Star Staff as the finisher, they were about to clash with Al, but... Oi, 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 this is... Hold on, I gotta blow my nose. Astonished, the imaginary Subaru floating beside her voiced his bewilderment. Even if she knew that bewilderment was the same sensation she was feeling, no peace of mind came upon Petra's heart. Only receiving a tremendous discomposure, the situation moved faster than she could speak any words to stop it. Undoubtedly, that was the replay of the scene that had unfolded just earlier. The members of the Outer Busters had collapsed in unison, causing the exceedingly reliable group to crumble. As the powerful and brave Ram, Garfield, and felt knelt over. Petra once again crossed gazes with the last person remaining. Ow. It's the stars. Your stars were bad. That too was the exact same proclamation, followed by the exact same movements, so without needing to be prompted, Petra relied on the emotions of her heart and leaped backwards through compression. Once again, glaring at Al across the distance open between them, she heard his voice breathe out a sigh. That was... play ball. That marked the beginning of Petra Leite's unending hell. That's the end of the chapter? Fuck! Fuck! I like this. I like this art. I do quite like this art. All right, chat. I'm going to read the beginning of this next chapter. Or this. Oh my God. Okay. I like this. I like this. Go ahead, artist. Graphile art. Okay, bitch. Yeah, I like the colors. I like the paint, like the painting. Like I like the splotchiness. I love it. Oh God. I like this. I like this. I really fucks with this art. Good shit, dude. Good shit. Oh, okay. Sorry. Ooh. I mean, yeah, they kind of had to go crazy for like the Petra Leite. Okay. Arc 9, Chapter 56. Petra Leite. I wonder if this chapter is gonna make me cry. Petra Leite was a country girl born in Arlem Village, a village in the kingdom of Lagunica. She had been born with a remarkable appearance and a natural shrewdness, but other than that, there was nothing particularly noteworthy about her. Originally, there would have been no room for her to become involved with events that would be engraved into history, and she would have likely lived out her entire life as a mere villager, with any prospect of visiting a city being nothing more than a dream. Ergo, having veered off her original route, becoming involved with several larger than life incidents that would go on to be etched into history, Petra's current state of existence was a result that had been warped through interference. The fact that her fate had been distorted was something that even Petra herself was aware of. Originally, Petra was a cringeworthy girl who prided herself on her cuteness, under the mistaken impression that she could lead all the nearby adults and children around by their noses. Surely, the original Petra would have never corrected that misunderstanding. Instead, spending her days selfishly acting like the ruler of her own miniature world. She did not think that would have been a particularly bad life. She believed such a life would have been happy and enjoyable. She believed such a life would have been happy and enjoyable in its own way. Only, now that she had strayed from the original, Petra's values simply did not allow her to view that as happiness. After all, none of the people I currently love would be there, would they? Okay. All right. So those two chapters were fucking crazy. Let me know how you guys felt about like chapters 54 and 55 like in the comments, like and correct me if like I'm wrong with any speculation that was already proven or disproven like prior. Like dude, it's been a roller coaster reading like two chapters at once and then trying to digest everything like at the same time. But we got like a pretty good length going. You know, we got like just a bit over 2 hours of reading. So we're gonna knock these bitches out. But this has been your boy Zero, aka Black, Natsuki, Subaru, and look, man, like this shit just keeps getting better. I can't wait to dive into Petrolete, which I'm gonna literally start recording as soon as I end this. So yep, you guys are gonna get these today, and then tomorrow Petrolete is going to go up, and potentially if I can get 58. I know someone sent it to me in the Discord, like I'll get that one too. But hopefully this arc has a good ending. But so far, like it's up there. It's up there. But I'll catch y'all on the next one. Until next time, peace.